Oh, there you are. Hi.
There we go. Okay, there we go.
How are
Connection
you?
made. Good. How are you?
Connection made. Good. Where are you? It looks much nicer than
Um,
it is here.
I'm in the jungle. I don't know, somewhere. No, I'm in my backyard.
I love it.
Yeah,
Welcome.
it's a LA winter, so it's hot and Christmassy. I don't know.
Fair. It's snowing here, so just slightly different. Well, I'm so excited to have you here today. Big fan of All My Life as well. We're gonna do some cooking and some chatting. So first things first, I'm gonna let you, who will obviously do it much better than I can, tell everybody a little bit about the film and your character, if you will, before we start to do some cooking.
Yeah, All My Life is inspired by a true story about this couple who fall in love and get engaged, and shortly after, I play a character named Saul. He was a aspiring chef, incredible chef, but he got diagnosed with a terminal illness, cancer, and then they had to figure out what they were going to do for the rest of the time that they had together. And so their friends banded together and fundraised a bunch of money to get them to have a magical wedding that they will never forget. It's a romantic comedy. It's a romantic drama. I'm sure if you've seen it. There's just a lot of elements that kind of the human condition, human emotions kind of go through. Excuse me. So it's a beautiful film, and it's cool to be here because, Saul loved to cook, loved to take ingredients from different cultures and kind of make it his own, and he just loved to feed people and loved to see people's smile on their face, and that thing that chef wants to see every time you make some food. They want to see you go, yeah. They can't even describe it in words. It's like a lot of and uhs.
That's what we're going to go for
Yes.
today with this. We are actually going to make miso carrots inspired by a dish that Saul makes in the film. Really simple. I don't know how you would characterize Saul's cooking style, but just from what was shown in the film, I feel like he is not overly fussy, but obviously wants that reaction like all
Yes.
chefs do, but plays with simple flavors and makes things sort of unexpected and cool. There was a lot of different dishes throughout the film that were very unique but not overly complex, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I think it's as you know, as a chef, it's a love language, right? Food it's a love language. It's a way to convey love without words and without gestures. It's just what you're putting into your body. So I mean, the miso carrots are in the movie. There's this line that a lot of people have never tried that combination. So
yes.
That umami flavor with carrots. So I'm excited for you to watch and see you guys make it.
Well, we're going to do just the start here, which is incredibly simple. I'm going to tilt this down so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So we have carrots in this bowl here. It's like a pound of carrots that we've sliced on the bias to make them look pretty like this. We've got rainbow carrots here. These are going to get roasted, and then we're going to add a miso glaze. So all we're going to do first is hit these with 2 teaspoons of light sesame oil. Anybody making this at home, if you don't have sesame oil, avocado oil, even olive oil, but olive oil, you're going to be able to taste that olivey flavor, which we're not really going for here. And then just season it with a tiny bit of salt. And I'm going to get in here with my hands, which are clean, but I'm a big fan of getting fancy with
get
things,
in there.
right? It's just easier. We don't need to be
You can really massage it in there. Yeah.
Yes.
You can't do that with a spoon.
We cannot. We're getting these all coated, and then I'm just going to turn these out onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. Again, parchment is for easy cleanup. I'm all about easy cleanup. I don't know, what's your cooking background? How skilled of a chef are you, or home cook, I should say?
I would describe my cooking as I like cooking alone when I try a recipe for the first 3 times, because then I when because it's the hardest when you're cooking and it's like, oh my God, I've never tried this recipe. This is gonna be, if this is what we're hinging the night on this. So I'm not that type of cook, likes to experiment and try weird things. But My parents used to own a restaurant, so I did a lot of watching. I did some cooking, but more watching. So the fact that I've been able to see the techniques, the cutting techniques through them, really, really helped. So I don't have fingers flying around and stuff. So that's very helpful. Yeah.
I'm gonna pop these into a 425-degree oven so we can get those going. They're just gonna roast for like 20-ish minutes until they're nice and soft, and then we're gonna add a glaze. I think sometimes people try to add all of their flavors at the beginning of like roasting a vegetable or something, and then something like a glaze that we're gonna make has sugar in it. If you're using spices as well, sometimes they can burn if you're, and then also we have to clean the baking sheet after that, which is why we lined it with parchment, just in case.
That's funny because as a chef, like the cleaning is like, you're trying to minimize the cleaning, right? Even the techniques of how you're cooking something, you're like, let me just try and not clean. Yeah.
I would say like I spend 50% of my life doing dishes, so I'm always trying to minimize that. What do you think the hardest part of playing a chef was? Or, I mean, you don't have to say there was the hardest part, but was there a challenging element to it?
Because I know I wasn't a line cook, but it was a family-owned restaurant, so when it was busy, you have to multitask. You have to know what dishes are going where, what substitutions or what people need. So there's this level, I think, of almost playing a game in a sense, like an athlete playing a game where you're focused, but you're physically running around the place and trying to dodge people and not get burned. So to try and recreate that element on those scenes where it's not really happening, but you're trying to make it look like you've been cooking for the last
you're like a little bit sweaty.
But you're like not too sweaty.
There's adrenaline
like
going.
Your sweat is dripping on the food or like that. It's gross. But so I would say that to recreate that and also like the whole cutting. It's funny because everyone has different ways of cutting. Different techniques. So it's just doing it the way that the trainers kind of taught me, and also my little influence, and I'm sure chefs will have different ideas of what that looks like. It's like watching doctors and seeing like, that's not how I would do it.
But you actually had like a trainer helping you with knife skills and things like that?
Yeah. We definitely had that, and we did some cutting sessions and realizing how many things I did right and how many things I did wrong that I carried over. Now I'm like, oh yeah, I won't do that again, because that's why I kept cutting my fingers before.
It's definitely humbling. Even after a decade, like in the food business, there are still techniques that you pick up and you're like, wow, I've been doing that wrong for a very long time. And you just sort of are like, no, it's fine.
You quietly go like, no, I've been doing this for, totally. That's the right way.
Well, we're going to whip up a quick glaze for these carrots while they're in the oven. Everybody at home, this is a really actually simple recipe. The only mildly obscure ingredient is the miso. So this is white miso paste, which is like a little bit sweeter. Miso paste is just fermented soybean paste, and it has that great umami flavor that we were talking about before. So we have a tablespoon and a half of that in there, and then we're also going to add a tablespoon of this light sesame oil. Make your oil substitutions if you need to. I think what was like kind of cool about watching Saul to do his cooking at home and stuff is like, it's a very sort of personal process, and it's iterative. So like you can be working with, whatever you happen to have on hand and then, some nights you're microwaving pizza like Jen did. So it's all a balance.
It's all about variety, baby.
It's all variety. And then we're adding a tablespoon of rice vinegar so that we can get some acidity in there. You could also use lime juice if you want. We just want to brighten things up a bit. And a tablespoon of pure maple syrup. This is adding our sweetness.
That's nice.
And you could also use brown sugar if you want. Please this is like the only time I would be remotely I'm snobby about an ingredient, but like don't use an Aunt Jemima or something here just because or like what's the other one, the log cabin one, because they're so thick and they have so much sugar in them.
You get the real maple syrup that's just straight up maple syrup instead of added sugar.
Exactly. Yes, precisely. See, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then we have 2 scallions here. So we're going to use the whole scallion. People always get confused, I find, with like when to use the white and the light green parts versus the dark green parts. And this is definitely one of those things that you could pretend that you always knew, even if you didn't. But like all of the onion flavor is in the white and light green parts, and then these darker parts are much more mild. So I like to like garnish things with these dark green parts. They're sprinkled. They look pretty. We're going to do that later. And we're going to use these white and light green parts just to add some oniony flavor into the mix. So I'm just going to go in here with my knife and finely chop this little white and light green part. And then you want to finely chop it again once you get through all of that, to sort of push it together and run your knife back and forth through it. And I'm sure this is stuff that you were forced to practice, is like, how fast can you make your knife look? I feel like I'm under pressure. Like, people want to see really
they
fast
always want to see like the quickness and like throwing the ingredients up and then slicing it halfway. You're like, that doesn't happen in a kitchen.
It does not happen.
That's like on Ratatouille or something.
Yes, I went to Cordon Bleu, and for some reason people just remember Julie and Julia. You know that? Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
And so they always want to ask me to like very finely chop a mountain of onions, and I was like, I can't do that. And we're just going to give this a really quick whisk. This is all that's in the glaze that's going to go on our carrots in a bit. What do you think? Do you like, given that we're going into the holidays now, are you going to be in charge of any cooking? And do you think you've like mastered some more tips and tricks, or at least feel more confident since playing a chef? Not pretending, because you do have a good culinary background.
What I've learned, this is what I've learned, and this is specifically with like certain sauces that you want to caramelize. Like if you're saying I'm cooking like, I don't know, like fried rice, or making a certain sauce with like vegetables, what I learned is that, instead of pouring like certain sauces, like soy sauce or whatever, directly onto the vegetable or noodles or whatever, it's putting it around it so it sears and it caramelizes, and then you mix it in, which I used to never do. I used to never do that, and that's kind of what I learned from one of the trainers, and that just changes the flavor of whatever you're cooking. Caramelizing it, yeah.
Now that you also mentioned the soy sauce, I'm like, I completely forgot the soy sauce. We're going to add a teaspoon of soy sauce as well, because we do want extra savory flair in here. But were you making pad thai yesterday? I saw you cooking something. That looked amazing.
Yeah.
And that is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to pull off. You made it look rather effortless, but it's a difficult dish.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with like high heat and then like and then pushing things aside, and I mean, I never done it that way, where you put the eggs on the bottom and then you put the noodles on top. So it's a different way of cooking instead of just frying the egg. So it's really cool, and that's what I always say. Even if you don't like a certain ingredient, like broccoli or whatever, there's like hundreds of ways to cook it that you might like it, and it's not really about the broccoli; it's about how you cook it, right?
Totally. And speaking like. These carrots, I have a swap out. Magic of Instagram Live.
I didn't even see you take it out.
Yeah, you did. These are like nice and soft now. They're not super cooked through, because like we want them to, they're going to go back in the oven with the glaze on them. But they are on the more tender side. And what we do is just pour this glaze. This is also why we have the parchment. Directly onto the carrots. And I know people have been joining throughout this. So what we're making is miso carrots, inspired by a dish that Saul makes in All My Life. And we're just tossing all of this together. And it's not going to look pretty right now, and that's absolutely fine. This is sort of an ugly delicious moment. But we just get all of these coated before they go back in the oven. And I'm all about, like, this is going to serve 2 people, which I think is pretty helpful these days. Like, we don't want to be cooking dishes for 8 to 10 people always, but this is easily doubled or tripled if you are, feeding a family or feeding a larger crowd. And then once these are all coated, they go back in the oven for like 10-ish more minutes. And sadly, I don't think that you're going to see the final product, because
Yeah,
We
y'all
have to
cooking
talk
y'all
to
cooking with
Jessica.
Jessica. Yes, that's
Yes.
amazing. Yeah, I can't. I wish you could do 3
I
Instagram live. They need to fix
They
that
need
very
that.
soon.
We need a grid. But before you leave us, what, just out of my own curiosity, like what was your favorite part of the experience of this film? Is there something you're like going to take with you out, particularly from this project?
Yeah, I think what's important is to what I learned from Saul and what I've learned from Jen and their relationship is, you're going to have so many highs and lows. And then the lowest of lows, it's also just how you react and what promise you make, not just to each other, but to yourself and enjoying the things that you took for granted before, just the small little things. I mean, even enjoying a simple taste of a carrot that's, I mean, something like that. It's whatever makes you feel good inside. I think from then you can always create those memories and have those that no one can ever take away. So I definitely carry that over into my life.
I love that. That's beautiful, especially at the end of a year like this. I think that's
Yes.
really awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here to do some cooking with me today. It was a
Yes.
pleasure to meet you. I hope you have such happy holidays. We're going to wait for Jessica to come on and finish up some cooking.
Yes. Thank you so much, Serena. And I can smell the miso carrot.
Good.
So
We just need a
I'll be
scratch and
tasting it
sniff
virtually.
option.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much,
Bye.
Harry. Bye.